I am not estranged. Again, I am not estranged. But I get comments sometimes from people who seem to assume that I am estranged, a millennial, and making mental health or healing related content on the internet, especially on TikTok, makes some people assume that I'm part of like no contact TikTok, even though I'm not. But also, my like FYP feeds me content from people who are estranged on like the kid side and on the parent side at different times. And while a lot of it makes me sad, I also find it interesting. I think the part that really grips me is it feels like the almost feels like the two different groups almost like live in different reality, like different versions of reality. The way that these kids see relationships and emotions and mental health is really very different from how most estranged parents seem to see these issues. And I just analyze that a lot because I think that divide has to be a lot of what makes no contact end up happening. Is like, how do you negotiate something and find middle ground if you can't agree on where you're starting at or like what all the facts are, where, like, you know what I mean? And so I just find that sadly interesting, and I'm always kind of trying to debate like what makes us see these things differently and what are the specific things that we see differently. And I think that there are a lot. For example, I think how we define abuse are different, how we define trauma is different. Things around forgiveness vary. Our feelings around power dynamic relationships and beliefs about attachment and parent child dynamics, about how much responsibility each side has when kids are kids and when kids become adults. Like, I think there's so many things that people differ on that cause this divide. But a new one occurred to me recently, and that is what it means to be mature or to grow up. A whole lot of people who are estranged on the kid side will see their parents as emotionally immature. And then I've also noticed that some estranged parents will say that their kids need to grow up, especially that they're really entitled and that they need to grow up, and like get over things. And honestly, like the reason that this occurred to me is because somebody left a comment on one of my videos telling me that I needed to grow up. And I thought it was really interesting, the specific video that that comment was left on, because I wasn't talking about my trauma. I wasn't talking about accountability or blame or anything like that. I just said that I have CPTSD and that my husband does too, and that I also have CSA trauma. And then I was talking about how we navigate our like different emotional and mental health and trauma related needs within our marriage. But it really didn't have anything to do with anybody other than me and my husband and how we're working with the hands we were dealt. Which to me is being an adult. It's like, okay, well, here's where I'm at and here's where he's at, and what can we do with this? Like I said, it really, to me, it doesn't really have that, like, sure, the origins of these things came from childhood, but like in that video I really wasn't thinking about or doing anything related to my parents or his parents. So it occurred to me that, like, what does that person mean by grow up? I think, and they said something about like these conditions didn't used to exist. And I think that my interpretation of that, and of course I am interpreting this because they didn't explain very fully, but is that saying I have complex trauma is me not being an adult or is me not growing up, which I genuinely find really interesting because for me, recognizing that some of the things I struggle with and where the roots of those things came from really enables me to actually deal with the things I struggle with and actually change, actually heal, rather than just getting stuck in the same behavioral pattern that I've always had. So for me, acknowledging the trauma is a huge part of what is enabling me to become more mature than I have been previously. But I wonder if this idea kind of comes from that like old parenting idea of don't cry, stop being a baby, have a stiff upper lip, that kind of a thing, that like you suppress and deny emotions if you're not a baby or if you're a grown up or if you're mature. And so if just kind of being open about emotional needs and admitting that you have them and not suppressing everything perhaps is part of the difference in how we're seeing things. My perspective, people who deny and suppress their emotions end up taking them out somewhere else. So if I wasn't talking to my husband about the fact that I got triggered by XYZ, then those emotions wouldn't just go away, they would kind of get stuck. And then if I don't know, drop the spatula while cooking, I might have this huge overreaction later because I'm just like boiling at this level of emotion in my body and not actually regulating what was there. And I think, I don't have kids yet, but it's easy for me to see how if you're like boiling with emotion a lot of the time and then also trying to take care of young children who have a lot of needs and who have really big kind of unpredictable emotions sometimes, that it would be really, really easy for them to trigger you and for you to end up releasing some of that pent up emotion onto the children when they cry or when they get mad or when they are impatient or whatever it is. And so for me, like, that's kind of the ultimate thing that I'm trying to avoid as I hope to become a parent, is I want to know how to deal with my stuff, like truly deal with it, truly feel the feelings, truly get them out, so that I'm not constantly boiling with emotion. And then as a parent, or even just as a wife, as a friend, whatever, don't end up having to release my emotions in ways that aren't really related to the original problem. Like, so anyway, I think it kind of boils down to, they think we're babies for lingering on feelings, and we think they're being immature by not really facing stuff. And that's the two different worlds.